America, we got to get back to doing what's expected of us as free citizens in this democracy. That means being tolerant, being respectful, staying informed, and being engaged. I'm former Congressman Joe Walsh. Follow me here and join the millions of Americans who are renewing their social contract with each other. The social contract, it's on us. Hey, Joe Walsh, former Congressman Joe Walsh, back with you. Hope that your week is going well. There's so much going on right now, so much craziness going on right now in this country, so much of what Trump and MAGA are doing, and so much of the resistance that's bubbling up all over the country. All of us Americans who just love and are so concerned about our democracy and the rule of law and the Constitution and this thing, all of this, which makes America so damn great. I'm really so pleased and honored to be joined right now by a friend of mine. Pull him in here, Keith. Can I see that handsome mug of Ken Harbaugh? There he is. Ken Harbaugh, everybody, former Navy pilot, president of Valor Media Network. He's got a great podcast that you all should check out wherever you check out podcasts, on YouTube, everywhere. It's called The Ken Harbaugh Show. He's part of the Midas World, great group. But check it out, The Ken Harbaugh Show. Ken, my friend, you look wonderful. It's so good to see you. How are you, brother?
I'm good. Well, you know what? I've taken to answering that question differently, as I suspect you have as well, right? There's that reflexive reaction we used to give. Doing great. How are you doing? But
when you're asked that question, Ken, these last 120 some days, what's your typical go-to?
My typical go-to is to pivot to something else, because I look, my mood changes day to day based on the latest outrage from the Trump administration. Who's he going after next? How is he undermining our security, our reputation around the world, our moral standing? I mean, the latest outrage was the trip to the Middle East, and he squandered decades, generations of American moral leadership sitting with tyrants. Look, I understand you got to have allies, but calling somebody who hacked to death a Washington Post reporter, a great guy, that's not what I want to see from my president, and it reflects on the country that I love.
And
so, not doing
as
great.
I always love to say, thank you for your service, Ken Harbaugh. Thank you for what you've done in this still young life of yours. And you're not someone who just bitches and moans about things. You're out there trying to do stuff. And before I get into one of the really exciting upcoming resistance, in essence, events that you're part of coming up, Ukraine is an issue that you've been intimately involved with, just maybe from 30,000 feet, and come down a little bit if you want. What's life looking like right there with this entire situation?
It's rough over there. I'm headed back.
You're heading back to Ukraine.
I'm heading back to Ukraine. You know what? It's tough to give you the full strategic picture. So let me just give you, like, anecdotally what they are dealing with, because I think the stories hit home better than the 30,000 foot strategic overview. We're bringing a convoy of ambulances. I'm not going to tell you where we're leaving or where we're going. So, we're going to keep it. We're going to keep it cool, and OPSEC is tight. What was Hegseth's comment in the signal chain? But the average lifespan, the reason we got to bring these convoys of ambulances over all the time is that the average lifespan of an ambulance at the front in Ukraine is 11 days. One, because it's dangerous at the front in Ukraine. Two, because ambulances are a top target of the Russian military. I mean, you got to think about the mindset of a military that targets ambulances. Even with all the precautions we take, that's what they want to blow up. They want to blow up the vehicles that are saving people's lives.
Again, though, for everyone who is listening, the average lifespan of an ambulance in Ukraine lasts about 11 days. At the front.
At the front. Yep. They last about 11 days at the front. That said, the Ukrainians are, I mean, they're modern day Spartans, and they are innovative in ways you have to see to believe. I guess an existential threat
Yeah.
forces you to do that. It forces you to be creative and innovate in ways that you never would in peacetime. So one of the things they are beginning to do is design
Yeah.
drones, robots, actual terrestrial drones to go in and pick up the wounded, to scoop them up and to drag them out. Because the other thing the Russians like to do is leave a wounded Ukrainian outside the trenches and wait for his buddies to come rescue him, and then they do another strike. That might be warfare tactics 101, but it is emblematic of another Russian strategy, which is the double tap. And I've seen this personally, where they will launch a missile or a glide bomb. It'll hit an apartment building. The one I saw hit an apartment building. I mean, there was
Mm.
nothing military about this site. The lasting memory for me is this grandmother wailing in the parking lot in front. And I know it's going to seem trivial, but it's moments like this that for some reason stick with you.
Yeah.
She lost her cat, right? And in the scheme of things, not a big deal, but that was all this woman had. Her apartment's on fire. It's on like the 10th floor, flames coming out of it. And, it's moments like that stick with you. And I know that seems minor in a war that has killed hundreds of thousands, but the real risk in a situation
Yeah.
like that is the double tap. And the emergency workers have to wait. They have to wait until the all clear is given, because when they show up, that's when the Russians strike again to kill
I
the
know
emergency crews.
you don't want to hear this, but I'm just gonna say again, Godspeed, because you're heading over there, and thank you. And you, I know your background, but still, every time you go over there, Ken, I mean, you're heading into a war zone. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank
One
you.
big picture question before we get into why I really wanted to bring you on, besides just I love to talk to you. I'm out there when I talk about Trump and Russia and Ukraine. I was on CNN a month and a half ago, and I don't think they were happy with me because we were talking about this topic. And I said, screw it, Jim Shudo. Trump's a Russian asset. And I went boom, 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 boom. And he said, well, there's no proof, but so I'll just put this in front of you. The president of the United States, in my mind, is on Russia's side. He's not on the side of the free world, of our allies, and of NATO. He's not on Ukraine's side. Am I too far out there?
No. And I'm going to endorse what you said and explain it. Donald Trump
Thank you.
is a Russian asset. He doesn't have to be on their payroll to be a Russian asset. It is actually irrelevant at this point. Honestly, if he were on their payroll, he would probably be a little more subtle.
Yeah.
Right? It might actually help Ukraine if he were on their payroll, because he would at least have to pretend that he wasn't. But he is genuflecting before Putin every chance he gets. He is being played again and again. What does it matter if he's on their payroll or not, if he is a de facto agent of the Kremlin by virtue of his actions, by virtue of his sympathy for Putin, for autocrats? And I think that's because he honestly looks up to Putin. He wishes he had that kind of power. He wishes he could instill that kind of fear in his subjects. That's how he views us. He doesn't view us as compatriots or citizens or constituents. He views us as subjects. And when he sees the fear that Putin can instill in his subjects, or
Yeah.
Xi, or or Kim Jong Un, he admires it. And I think we saw that in the Middle East as well.
Put the uniform on. You serve this country, Ken. Does it pain you to think that we have a president of the United States that is almost like literally no longer right now while he's in the White House? We're not on the side of the free world. It's mind-boggling to me. It must be just.
Yeah, look, I I mean, in some cases in the world, we're the bad guys now, and that is horrible to contemplate. But I keep going back to an observation made during the darkest days of the Blitz in London by Winston Churchill, when he said, and I think he's right, he was right then, and I think the observation holds today: America always does the right thing after exhausting every other possibility. We are exhausting every other possibility right now. But I'll turn this back to you, Joe. Aren't you seeing a vibe shift in the streets? Aren't you seeing Americans begin to wake up and realize, you know what? This isn't who we are. This isn't what we do. We don't ship innocent people to gulags overseas. We don't abandon our allies and cozy up to the worst actors on the world stage. This isn't America. I pray that America is going to exhaust every other possibility and end up making the
I
right
say
choice.
every day that the beauty of Trump, and I mean this, is because he's so bad and so lawless and so authoritarian and so dishonest and so cruel and so corrupt, because he's so bad, the beauty of it is just what you said. He's forcing us in real time to decide what kind of country we want to be. And you are someone, and this is why I wanted to speak to you, who's not just sitting around. There are groups and protests, and you're right. Everybody checked out after he won, but the last couple of months, shit's happening. You're part of something big that I want the whole country to know about coming up on June 6th on the National Mall in DC. A protest, a gathering, standing up, veterans and families and everybody standing up against authoritarianism. Tell us, Ken, what's going on June 6th.
Yeah, everyone is welcome. The banner is going to say "Unite for Veterans, Unite for America." But if you are a veteran, if you're a military family member, if you care about veterans, if you care about the country and the oath that we swore to uphold, show up. And if you can't show up on the National Mall on June 6th at 2 p.m. in Washington, D.C., check out the live stream on Valor Media Network. Just search for Valor Media Network on YouTube. We'll be live streaming the whole thing, interviewing speakers as they come off stage. I will tease this. Our headliner band is the Dropkick Murphys, one of the the iconic resistance bands of our generation, I think, and they're going to be sharing their new unreleased single, "Who Will Stand With Us," which I think is going to be the anthem for this age. 2 p.m. June 6th, or check out the live stream. And it's our chance to register just how unhappy as veterans we are with an administration that has stabbed us in the back.
That stabbed veterans in the back. Explain.
So there are multiple examples of this, I guess, starting with the VA, which so many of us depend on for healthcare, and the proposals to absolutely gut it. Look, I'll be the first to admit the VA has problems. Too many nurses has never been one of the VA's problems, and they're proposing to cut 80,000+ staff members from the VA. But let me highlight one broken promise in particular, because it actually includes the word promise. The PACT Act was passed and funded during the Biden administration to take care of veterans who were exposed to burn pits. The care actually goes all the way back to cover veterans from Vietnam who were exposed to Agent Orange, as my dad was. We just lost my dad a couple weeks ago. This is I'm wearing his jacket, as a matter of fact. Mine's over there. I took the patches off and I put him on my dad's jacket. But the PACT Act, the first word in the PACT Act is promise. It's a promise for access to care and treatment for veterans. In the latest bill, that $17 billion was lined out. How can you call a bill a promise and then rip the rug out from under the veterans who bore that burden? And it gets to a fundamental betrayal, which is we always, as a country, seem to have enough money to send young men to war and women. And for some reason, we can't find the money when they come home to take care of them. That's what we're upset about. That's why we're marching on Washington on June 6th. show up if you can.
Yeah, and the
Dial
cool
into the
thing,
live
Ken,
stream if you
about
can.
this, and you and I've gotten to know each other because of Trump, but like you and I disagreed on a lot of public policy. I'm a libertarian, limited government guy, but I agree with everything you just said there in that you judge how good and decent a country is by how well a country takes care of those who have served. End of story. And Trump is taking a meat cleaver to that. The June 6th event in DC, what brought this together? What's the motivating purpose? What got you all fired up for this?
It's that broken promise. It's the decision to gut the PACT Act and gut the VA, and that
Uh,
awakens something in the broader vets community, not the
yeah.
so-called resistance community, but vets from every political persuasion, from every corner of the country, have said you can't break a promise like this and get away with it. And I think the beautiful thing we're seeing is that a lot of our compatriots, a lot of fellow Americans, are looking to vets and saying,
Uh,
"We'll follow. You lead the charge. You plant that flag, and we'll rally around it because we support you." If we can get Americans to care about this, maybe they can care about how immigrants are being treated. Maybe they can care about, how the coal companies are
yeah.
being given carte blanche to pollute. Maybe they can care about a million other issues. But this seems like a rallying cry for the moment, and hopefully
And
it grows
again,
beyond
Ken,
this.
you mentioned the June 6th rally in DC on the National Mall. Everyone can go.
Yes. Yep. Everyone, vets, military family members, anyone who cares about vets or what is happening
You're gonna get a
in
really good
Washington
big
right now.
crowd. You know that.
Yeah. Yeah, we are. We are. I'm hearing about it from everybody. I have people I've known for 20 years saying, "Hey, are you coming on June 6th? Do you know about this?" I'm
That's
like, "I know
awesome,
about it."
everybody. June 6th, National Mall, DC, 2 o'clock p.m. Veterans, families, patriots, everybody who
That's right.
supports our veterans and opposes what the Trump administration is doing to our veterans. As Ken mentioned as well, the event, if you can't make DC, the event live, the event will be live streamed on Valor Media Network. Um,
That's
Ken,
right.
is there anywhere any people can go for details on the event?
Absolutely. Unite for the number 4 veterans.org. Uniteforveterans.org will have everything you need to know, a sign up, details behind what we're hoping to achieve at the event. And we've also got some information at valormedianetwork.com and
Go to
our YouTube live stream.
valormedianetwork.com, go to uniteforveterans.org. You'll get all the info you need on the June 6th rally
That's right.
and on the National Mall in DC. Show up and Ken, I will promote this as much as I can. Thank you, brother, for what you're doing. Um, uh, I want to close with this. Why do you do what you do right now? I'm older than you young man. I
I'm a dad.
I love
It's an
that.
easy
That's a
answer.
three-word
It's an
answer, by
easy
the way,
answer.
for the record.
Yeah, I got 3 kids and I want them to inherit a country worthy of them.
Stop. Put your microphone down. You do not need to say another word. That's Ken Harbaugh, former Navy pilot, president of Valor Media Network. Do me a favor, follow him everywhere on social media. Do me a favor, check out his podcast, The Ken Harbaugh Show, everywhere. And do me a big old favor, do Ken a big favor. Put June 6th on your calendar, a big old rally for veterans on the mall in DC. Be there. I'm going to be there. Everybody be there. And if you can't be there, you'll live stream it on Valor Media Network, valormedianetwork.com. Go there for details. Unite the number 4 veterans.org for details on June 6th. Ken Harbaugh, you're one of my heroes, damn it. Be safe, brother.
Same.
Hey, former Congressman Joe Walsh with you this Thursday. I swear to God, I'm not playing games. I lose track of days, which makes sense when you are my age. I'm what am I now, 94 years old, and you're fighting every day to try to save our democracy, defend our democracy and the rule of law from that madman in the White House. Man, you can forget what day it is often. Hey, there's a lot coming up, and we talk about this a bunch, the kind of organic resistance that's risen against the authoritarian in the White House. There's another big national protest resistance day coming up in June 14th. You've heard me talk about it a bunch. I want to bring on right now one of the young man who's with one of the groups who's been just out there doing God's work, helping to be a part of and organize the national resistance. Hunter Dunn, where are you, my friend? There he is. Hunter Dunn is the national press coordinator for a group I've talked about a lot, and everybody ought to know this group and go to their website all the time. It's 5051, and their website is 50501.org. 50501. What, Hunter? I botch it?
Well, it's actually 5050.1. Spelling out the word 50, spelling out the word 50, period, and then spelling out the word one. I didn't know until recently you could have a one as the domain name, but apparently you can.
Wait, Hunter, not like I'm an idiot. Say that again. The website is what?
5050.
You're spelling out 50?
Yes, I'm spelling out 50 both times and spelling out the one.
5050.1, 5050.1.org.
Yes.
Fudge.
No org.
No org.
Like this.
Oh, just that's right. .1. That's your man. By the way, Hunter, you and I've talked before. I apologize because I've sent people to the website a bunch, and I promise you, I've sent them to the correct website. I'm having a long early morning today. There it is. Hey. Thank you. Keith put it up. 5050.1, 5050.1.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Hey, Hunter, thank you for taking some time this morning. You and I've talked briefly, but start here. 5050.1. What is the organization? How did it get started? What's it doing? Tell me what's going on.
Well, 5051 stands for 50 states, 50 protests, one movement. So the way that it started was literally just normal people on social media saying the Trump administration, what it's doing, and right when everything started, clearly this is wrong. So what if we all got together, went to our local state capitals, or if you can't make your state capital, go to like some major metropolitan area like Los Angeles, and across the entire country on the same day have a protest at the same time to show that the American people are united against this fascist authoritarian regime. And it started out pretty small on February 5th. That was the first day. Originally, it was 50 states, 50 protests one day for February 5th. And we had between like 20 and 50,000 people nationwide. But there was a protest in every state, which is pretty cool. Even in red states, even in blue states, right? We're not a partisan movement. But then by April 5th, exactly 2 months later, we had like 1,300 events and up to 5.2 million people per reporting. So it's grown just exponentially in a very short amount of time. And now we're even working with other coalition groups and stuff to form a broader anti-Trump resistance movement. The one that you're probably hearing already coming up on 6/14 is called No King's Day, which is a similar name to what we had on 2/17. Although if I understand correctly, I think, Joe, you were using that before we were.
No, but that's okay. We're all on the same team. Love it. Love. Exactly. There it is. No Kings. Wait, Hunter, the growth, that is phenomenal growth in a couple months, and you're continuing to grow. Why? Why do you think it's growing?
Well, I think it's just because it's different, right? It's decentralized and grassroots, which is a thing people are still trying to get their heads around. Even like whether it's reporters or ordinary people, it's sort of complicated because you're used to being this like one guy, right? This one figure who's in charge of things, who's the leader. But that's sort of the problem with where our country's at right now. We have this one guy who says he's in charge and that it doesn't matter if he can take $400 million in gifts from Qatar or if he can have his own massive military parade for his own birthday, apparently, or he can suspend our basic constitutional rights and deport people to a torture prison in El Salvador. Well, that's the problem, right? So the solution is doing something different. And that's what this is. This is very different. Instead of there being one person in charge, I'm not in charge of like the movement. I'm just here to help explain things.
Yeah.
There's tons of different local groups around the country that all work together and mutually recognize each other as part of this movement. So there's not really like one organization. There's a ton of smaller organizations that coalesce together to form this movement, which is, I think, a lot smarter because A, it better represents the interests of the people because decisions are supposed to be coming from the bottom up.
Yeah.
Although obviously nothing's perfect. And in addition to that, it's a lot harder to silence us, right? They can arrest me and then 50 more people will just rise up to take my place.
It's and you know this, Hunter. You and I, though you and I have never talked about issues. Maybe we agree on a hell of a lot of policy issues. I obviously come from the right. But you know, like I know, when Trump won in November, a lot of people just checked out.
Yes.
When he won in 16, there was like, you know, the marching that next day because people were stunned. But I think people were bummed out. And then as January hit and he got sworn in, just kind of organically, people began to get back in the game. You and I haven't talked about the Tea Party. I come from the Tea Party. Forget about the policies of the Tea Party. It was, I thought, decentralized and organic. And I've always thought like the Democratic Party needs a version of that. And what you're all doing seems to me to be part of that. No?
Well,
You're not formally
really
involved with the party, but you're like the conscience of something out there, the resistance.
Yeah, it's sorry. There's been a lot of discussion online over the past couple days about needing a left Joe Rogan, which is, I'm sure you've heard that, right?
Yeah,
And it's I'm sure it's very funny to you, especially coming to the space where you came from, because that's not how any of this works at all. The reason why he's popular, the reason why it works is, you know, shaky relationship with the truth.
He lies. Say it, Hunter. He spreads bullshit and lies, but go ahead. Yes.
Well, you know, that would be assuming he knows what he's doing, which after being in the WWE for a long period of time, being part of like all this stuff, a lot of head trauma.
Fair point.
I don't want to impugn him specifically. I mean, I do think that there's a lot of negative stuff happening because of him and that we couldn't replicate that. And the DNC couldn't replicate that if it threw millions of dollars at it.
Yeah.
What we need instead of this like one figurehead, this one guy everyone's listening to, we need to listen to the people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, just like
exactly.
Yeah, it is sort of the heart and soul of the American conscience, I'd say.
I think that's so astute, Hunter. I tell me if you agree with this, and then we'll get into June 14th. I was out there campaigning every day for Kamala Harris for 3 months last year, day by day in a battleground state. And I heard a variation of the same thing from a lot of voters. Trump's an asshole, Joe. I know that, but the Democrats are elitist and out of touch. I do think the resistance that whatever, and right now the Democratic Party is the opposition party, the left in this country needs to connect with working people, regular people. And I think what you're all doing is going to begin to do that. There needs to be that connection because Trump blows smoke up their ass and people think he's connecting. And you're right. It's not a Joe Rogan and there's no savior, but they need to make that connection with regular people.
Absolutely. It's interesting, right? Because the Democratic Party has been seen as elitist and out of touch. Meanwhile, Trump is literally doing this on behalf of a bunch of billionaires who want to siphon all the wealth out of the economy and put it into their pockets, into like offshore bank accounts. Like even more than the fascism, it's corporate oligarchy. And the billionaires are just more willing to work with the fascists because it doesn't challenge their power in the way direct democracy would challenge their power. So when you're coming to like those disruptive things like the Tea Party, like I understand where the idea of Trump came from, right? Wanting to disrupt the status quo. They were angry at the way that things were being done. They were angry at the neoliberal consensus as represented by like Hillary Clinton, but also people on the right. But then the problem with that disruption was it was a front for the billionaires. You know, you can't put out a fire from inside the house. You can't just put in the guy on Epstein's island and say, we're going to stop the Epstein friends. That's not going to work. You need someone who, you know, not to say that everyone who's rich is working. There are people working against it who have wealth and stuff. Let's say Governor Pritzker is a good example of someone who, like, because he has so much wealth, it's actually a benefit in our case because he's harder to corrupt, at least allegedly. Obviously, we will see how that goes. But he seems like he's doing really good work. But it is that sort of billionaire cabal. It's like this fake. Joe Rogan's a front for it too. I can understand how frustrating and upsetting it is.
Yeah.
I came into my own politically when the Trump thing was happening for the first time. I was in middle school. So like
Whew.
I watched Trump and I didn't like him. I was like, I wouldn't want this guy to be my friend or my teacher. But like, I didn't know what politics were. I thought Bernie was cool, but I also thought Ben Carson was cool. And I stand by the Bernie thing, and I do not stand by the Ben Carson thing. I heard neurosurgeon.
Yeah.
I was like, neurosurgeon, he's probably the smartest guy. I want the smartest guy, or smartest gal. But like, I understand, like, the rage makes sense, but damaging the country because of the rage doesn't make sense.
You're spot on. You're spot on, Hunter. Look, I went to Washington a while ago to be a disruptive force. I think our political system needs disruption. Trump is an evil disruptor.
Yes.
I'd love to see the left put forward good disruptors, and I think there's a great opportunity. That's Hunter Dunn, National Press Coordinator for great group that everybody, again, go to the website 5050.1, spell out 5050.1, check them out, get involved, follow what they're doing. Hunter, June 14th. Oh, before we get to June 14th, how often are there protests, and what's kind of, the ultimate goal, or is it just to keep doing this and keep growing and building?
Yeah, well, nationally speaking, when it comes to the 5051 movements and most of our coalition partners, we're talking one giant protest a month, or sometimes two, across the country, but then smaller actions that are happening every day. There's at least one thing happening in every state every day if you know where to look.
That's so
you can
cool.
go to our website, you can go to Political Revolution's website, you can go to Mobilize, you can go to Joe, I know you've been posting some of the protests that have been happening. Yeah. You can go to social media and you can find them. Just make sure it's on AI image. That tends to be a good tell about whether or not the protest is real or not.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. And the one thing I want to say, because you're giving a very good summary of everything, is this isn't necessarily a movement from the left. I think most of the things we're pushing for, constitutional governments, democracy, like those are median positions. That's not left or right. That is in some ways progressive because we want to progress the rights of all people, and in some ways more conservative because we want to conserve the things that make America great, which are our diversity, innovation, and democracy.
And Hunter, our freedom. We don't disappear people off of our streets. We don't do that. Exactly.
Yeah. At this point, abolishing ICE is a moderate position because of what they've been doing, right? Like, I think that we should all be able to get behind the SS is bad. We shouldn't have an SS in our own country. Regardless of what you call yourself politically, certain left-wing progressive solutions have to be done because that's the moderate, reasonable thing to do to defend our democracy.
The website is 5050.1. I'm going to continue to promote this and send you day after day on my show to this website to get involved and to be informed on what's going on where. What's going to happen June 14th? Tell me what this looks like.
So June 14th is under the title No Kings because on June 14th, reports are coming out that Trump's spending upwards of $100 million on a parade for himself, when what we should actually be celebrating is Flag Day and also the founding of our military, for those who have a lot of respect for our veterans.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's complications there. Not everyone is equally pro the American flag or pro the military, but as an American, you have a right to have complex opinions on that. What we don't have a right for is to have a Mussolini-style, victory parade. I forgot the word. Like in ancient Rome, they had like a reign.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Triumph. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
What are we triumphing? The tariffs? The fascism? The illegal detention of
Trump, the king,
right?
The dictator. Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, I'd rather call it No Dictators Day than No King's Day. Just kind of think like we need to be clear on how bad this is, right? He's a tyrant. He's a dictator. He's not just a king. He's a mad king. For my Game of Thrones fans out there.
Totally.
But
by the way, Hunter, do we know for certain if he's still planning on having that parade?
Well, let me take a look at my most recent information I've been getting. We're looking at, $100 million in taxpayer funds for military parade to celebrate himself. You know what $100 million could cover? It could cover a year of healthcare for 7,000 veterans. It could provide free school lunch to 50
Yeah.
million people. It could cover the Medicaid expansion gap. It could be, it could even be the tax break for working families that are being hurt by the tariffs.
June 14th, no King's Day. So he's going to, in all likelihood, Trump's going to have this Kim Jong-un style military parade in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
You all will be part of events going on all over the country.
Yes. In every state in the union, there is going to be multiple events protesting and taking attention away from that parade. Because what
Smart.
we should be celebrating is, our flag. We should be celebrating what that
Yeah.
represents, which is the many different groups of people and communities that we have that make up this great melting pot of America, right?
Yeah.
It's during Pride Month. It's not that far off from Juneteenth.
Yeah.
There are all these groups that are under attack by the Trump regime, right? People of color, immigrants, LGBTQ plus people, literally everyone with the tariffs, and
Yeah.
including other countries, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
America's supposed to be the city on a hill, and we haven't always been that, right? Sometimes we do great things, like with Ukraine, defending them against Russia, who is another fascist, right? Dugin, Putin, that's an ethno-nationalist project. But then sometimes we do some pretty terrible stuff too in the past, and we need to work on that. We need to get better. We need to be honest about that. But the more important thing is to not let new Hitler run the country, because he's just going to do worse things.
Exactly. We are an amazing experiment in freedom that is imperfect and is always trying to get better. We always should be trying to get better. Everybody put June 14th on your calendar. Everybody put June 14th on your calendar.
Yes.
Again, you can go to Hunter's website. You can go to 5051, 5050.1, 5050.1. I'll be putting that everywhere. Go to our website, oneflaginitiative.org. We've got information on what they're doing. Everybody.
We do have a central hub for finding protests for the 14th.
Oh,
by the way. So it's nokings.org.
Love.
And you can find or post protests that are happening in your state or community. There are protests happening across the U.S. in every state. There's also protests happening in Mexico and in Europe that I've seen just on the website looking at it right now.
Oh, very cool, Hunter. So that's nokings.org.
Yes. If you're an international listener, you should go to one of those protests in your country or start one if there isn't one already. One of my so I studied at Pepperdine University. I just graduated recently. And some of my professors, some of the people I met in Europe were at the hands-off protest in Heidelberg, Germany. There are people, this isn't just the U.S. protesting, it's the entire people of the world, because if we're being honest, Trump being in power hurts everyone. If you care about people in Palestine, in Congo, in Sudan, in Ukraine, in Taiwan, in really any country that you can name in the entire world, this is bad for all of them. I know you know this, but maybe we catch someone who hasn't been paying too much attention, they tuned out once Trump won. There was many people who voted for him, and I think most of those people voted for him not because they were in favor of Project 2025, because they constantly try to distance themselves from it, but because they thought he was going to make things better for the average American, that he was going to lower the price of the damn eggs. Guess what? You know what price has gone up a lot? Eggs. Everything else. So, sorry, it's hard
Hunter, hey,
help all of it, but
preach. I'm never going to stop somebody right when they're in the middle of preaching. I love it. Keep going. Everybody, June 14th. By the way, there's also a really big veterans protest on June 6th in DC that you've got information on as well. Again, everybody, go to nokings.org. That's a cool site. And go to 5050.1. Stay abreast, stay informed, be involved, and resist. This is your democracy. You got to defend it. Hunter, last question. The key is to keep growing, right?
Yes.
Keep growing the resistance. People ask me all the time, but then what's the end game? What are you going to do? And all I say is just grow. We just got to grow, whatever this is. And we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I think that the goals are pretty obvious, right? The first one is getting as many people into the street and getting as many people protesting, get as many people helping with mutual aid as possible. And then once we do that, right, once we get to that 3.5% number, which we're not that far from, we're like halfway there already. And that was in 2 months. So I imagine there'll be even more people out on June 14th. Once we get there, we put pressure on the government to stop, right, to reverse what they've been doing, or if not, make sure that government does those people in power get removed from power.
Exactly.
From there, enacting policies and changes to make sure that nothing like this will ever happen again in this country, at least for as long as all of us are alive, and for our kids and our children's children, and going on for hopefully the rest of all time. You mentioned the American experiment. And that's the thing, right? There is nowhere people, when they talk about America, right? When they talk about the idea, the reason why people come here in the first place, although obviously less of them are coming here now because we're not holding up to that promise, is the idea of America, right? The city on a hill, the place where we're experimenting with new forms of democracy, with representation for all people, for expanding rights forward, right? The civil rights protests in the 1960s are taught in school books around the entire world because we have something special here. And that thing is our diversity, our innovation, our democracy.
Our freedom.
And we're going to protect those things, right? Our freedom, our fundamental freedoms.
Yeah.
And once we kick the fuckers out, because, it's not just Trump, it's not just Vance, it's the entire oligarchic billionaire cabal backing them, and the neo-fascists doing goose-stepping their way through the White House, right? Like Stephen Miller. We can make changes to better represent the American people. I mean, I'm a big fan of ranked choice voting, right? We want to have a solid system, social security system, so we're not screwing over our seniors, and we're also not screwing over our young people. Whether it's things like healthcare, things like representation, things like the Equal Rights Amendment, which I'm sure you're familiar with because that's been a discussion. There are changes we can make once we get in power to make sure that this never happens again and to protect every single person who lives here. But right now, you know what we need to do? We need to kick out the king. We need to kick out all his little servants.
Bingo. No Kings in America. June 14th, everybody. Again, you can check out nokings.org. You can go to 5050.1, 5050.1. We'll see you all on June 14th. Get involved and resist. Hunter, you're the best, brother. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thanks for taking the time to talk. And thanks for everything you guys have been doing with No Kings. I know there's a lot of people that you're speaking to already about this. And that's even just listening to this, sharing this, putting the information out there makes a difference. Because the algorithm is designed to benefit the oligarchs, not the people. So the more you put it out there, the more you post, the more you share.
You got it, brother.
The more people get in the streets.
Thanks, Hunter.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Remember to listen, share, and follow The Social Contract with Joe Walsh on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere great podcasts are found. And be sure to leave a 5-star review. This has been The Social Contract with